A year ago, it seemed that Apple had no serious competitor capable of shaking its position in the premium smartphone segment. The American giant confidently held the status of the industry benchmark, dictated trends, and forced competitors to chase it in innovation and user experience. However, in recent months, slowly and almost imperceptibly to the wider audience, a new reality has begun to form in which Apple no longer looks like the unattainable peak of the tech market. At the center of this shift is Xiaomi, a company that 10 years ago was associated by many with budget iPhone copies, but is now step-by-step turning into one of Apple's most dangerous rivals. Paradoxically, in the very year of Apple's most successful iPhone launch, the company from Cupertino faced a threat that many experts are already calling the most serious challenge for Apple in the past 15 years. This refers to the situation surrounding the iPhone 17 Pro Max, a smartphone that in September of this year launched better than any Apple flagship in the last decade, set pre-order records, triggered genuine hype, and became the main tech event of the fall. But 3 months later, the picture changed sharply. Analysts recorded a rapid decline in interest in the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and the drop was so steep that in some countries sales fell by 22 to 27% compared to the previous month. And this trend continues. And against the backdrop of Apple's weakening position, a direct competitor suddenly surged: the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, a smartphone that many initially criticized for its name, which too closely resembled Apple's lineup, but which unexpectedly became the main hit of the winter season. According to the research firm Counterpoint Research, sales of the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max over the past 6 weeks increased by 150 to 180% in some regions, breaking the company's internal records, and for the first time, bringing statistics to a point where a single Chinese smartphone is directly taking market share from Apple, specifically in the premium segment. And this is surprising everyone, from analysts to investors. Why is this happening, and how serious has this new threat to Apple become? To answer that, we need to understand how the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max managed to change the entire market, and why it is being called the first smartphone in the company's history that not only caught up with Apple in many areas, but even surpassed the iPhone in some aspects. Despite criticism of the name, which indeed looks like an open attempt to play on associations with the iPhone, experts note that Xiaomi's technologies no longer resemble copies. On the contrary, the device demonstrates a level of engineering that surprised even tech bloggers traditionally loyal to Apple. What is most interesting is that for the first time in a long while, it is a Chinese smartphone that turned out to be more aggressively innovative than the product from Cupertino. For example, the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max received a 6.9-inch display with brightness exceeding 4,000 nits, making it the brightest smartphone in the world. Its camera system features a redesigned module with a 1.1-inch sensor, delivering photo quality that many respected reviewers, including GSM Arena and DxOMark experts, called the best in class for night photography. While Apple improved the cameras of the iPhone 17 Pro Max only moderately compared to the previous model, Xiaomi made a leap. The specs also command respect: a 7,500 mAh battery, 120 watts fast charging, a new cooling system, and the latest Snapdragon processor delivering record performance benchmarks. And on top of all this, a price that is on average 20 to 30% lower than that of the iPhone 17 Pro Max. As a result, we have what is likely the first Xiaomi smartphone that is not perceived as a budget alternative, but becomes a full-fledged player in the premium segment. Moreover, insiders from Chinese media, including MyDrivers and IT Home, claim that Xiaomi intentionally copied the Pro Max naming to show that the company is ready to enter direct confrontation with Apple on its own field. Judging by sales, the bet turned out to be successful. As for Apple, according to Bloomberg and Nikkei Asia, anxiety inside the company is growing. Sources close to the supply chain report that Apple has already adjusted production volumes for the first quarter of next year due to declining demand for the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Analysts link the drop in sales to several factors: market saturation, lack of radical innovations, high price, and rising competition from Chinese brands that for the first time were able to offer products of this quality level. And here the main question arises: is this a temporary market fluctuation or the first signs of a systemic crisis for Apple? Many experts lean toward the second option. The Wall Street Journal writes that Apple is facing a situation in which the company's technological advantage has become the smallest in its entire history. The innovations that once made the iPhone unique, smooth performance, optimization, camera, ecosystem, are no longer unattainable for competitors. Xiaomi in its new flagship has demonstrated for the first time that it can operate at the same level. Moreover, the Chinese company has begun building its own ecosystem, offering users a smartphone, laptop, watch, smart home bundle that in terms of functionality is no longer inferior to Apple, and in some aspects even surpasses it in flexibility. And as IDC specialists note, if earlier the gap between Apple and Chinese brands was several years, now this gap has shrunk to a single device generation. Essentially, the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max are symbols of a confrontation between two tech giants that is only gaining momentum. To understand the scale of the shift, it is enough to compare key parameters. For example, the display. The iPhone 17 Pro Max received an excellent XDR panel with peak brightness of 3000 nits, a strong result. But Xiaomi offers 4000 plus, which provides an advantage in sunlight and HDR content. At the same time, Apple still wins in stability, color accuracy, and video recording. But the very fact that Xiaomi has for the first time been able to reach the level of direct competition has become a real sensation. Against this backdrop, many analysts say that Apple has found itself in a situation where the company is forced to react rather than set the direction. And this is perhaps the most alarming thing for the giant from Cupertino. Essentially, the world is witnessing the beginning of a new technological duel in which China for the first time challenges Apple not in the budget segment, but in the most expensive, premium, prestigious one, where Apple once ruled alone. Reports from Bank of America state that for the first time in many years, Apple is facing a real threat of losing market share in the upper price segment. And forecasts from JP Morgan indicate that if the trend continues, within 2 to 3 years, Xiaomi may capture up to 15% of the premium market, a figure previously considered impossible. And against this backdrop, it becomes clear: the situation around the iPhone 17 Pro Max is not an accident and not a temporary deviation. It is the beginning of a new technological era in which Apple is losing its former untouchability, and Xiaomi is turning into a powerful player capable of rewriting the rules of the market. And if earlier China was catching up, now it is advancing, and this advance will only intensify.